like to start by thanking the people from the Museums and Special Collections Service in the university who set up that very nice little display, which is only going to be there in the library until the 22nd of Feb, if you want to go and see the real thing rather than my slides of various quality here, but some of them are rather good. The people I would mention are Christine McKenzie, who's here today, Jenny Downs, Neil Curtis, and Abir El-Adami especially. This has been very much a corporate enterprise, not corporate in the horrible sense, but group activity, interchange, and the photos that I will show you of the two Canaletto, the Canaletto and the Canaletto copy, were taken by Kim Downey from the university as well, and I think are rather nice. Perhaps some of you are here because you saw an article in the P&J. I was rather impressed by their headlines. On the front page, typical sort of Aberdeen-style headlines. Canaletto's hidden gem goes on show in City Library. Hopefully you found the correct library, not the Aberdeen Central Library. But that's the standard reference I noticed after many years in Aberdeen. And Art Great's work on show. This article in the P&J by Ben Hendry, I thought was rather good. It summed up a lot of the information and the issues. January the 23rd, 2019. The only thing he got wrong was Canaletto's dates. He made him into a centenarian, 103 when he died. Whereas in fact he was only 71. Still, if he'd lived that long, he would have produced even more pictures for us to sort of sweat over, whether they're by him or by a copyist or one of his many imitators. This is the main picture which we think, and we're very certain actually, is an original Canaletto. Andrew said he prefers the view of the Grand Canal. Maybe he's thinking of his time visits to Venice or his prospective visits to Venice. This, by contrast, is what we call a capriccio, the Italian word. It derives from the Italian word for goat, which seems strange, capra, and capriccio indicates the sort of unpredictable leaping around of a young goat, capriccio. So it alludes to the idea, like the English word caprice, the idea of fantasy, invention, imagination, which is the counterpart to the 18th century's fascination with reason, and indeed Canaletto's brilliant mastery of very precise logic and reasoning in a geometric way in his depiction of architecture. But it's a rearrangement. The capriccio is a kind of rearrangement to create something novel out of actual and sometimes also imagined architectural motifs. He places them in a setting with figures, very beautifully executed figures when you look at the originals, and you'll see some of the details I show you. They're done with a certain freedom but a great deal of control at the same time, and that's in a way what makes them different from the copy view of the Grand Canal. There are about 19 of them in the picture. He sort of tries to pursue a kind of conceit of washerwomen here, as you've noticed. In the foreground they're washing in this main fountain, also in this fountain at the portico, also upstairs they're hanging their washing over this ruin. And this is an ancient temple, basically, that has been had a modern building put on top of it. Amongst the 19 figures, there are a couple of rustic lovers. I've always wondered about these. My co-author of an article that we published on this in the Burlington magazine in December of 2017, Charles Beddington, thought that they were just a couple of rustic lovers, which in a sense they are. But I wondered whether they could be meant to be some English or Scottish milord or gentleman who's remembering his sentimental education as well as his study of classical ruins in Italy. Anyway, we'll come back to this quite a lot. When we first released press information through our excellent press officer Ewan Weems in March of 2018 about the article that Charles Beddington and I had published in the Burlington magazine, there was a massive press coverage. I think maybe the political situation was getting a bit too strained, so people liked the idea of looking at a bit of art, and the papers from the Belfast Chronicle to the Dundee Courier via the Times, and here we have the Times. The political editor of the Times, Jeremy Watson, actually rang me up and I had a good chat with him. And we'd said in the article in the Burlington that we found out that this was left, along with the view of the Grand Canal, to the university in 1863 in the will of a man called Alexander Henson, who had a house at Casty Ben in Dice. And so the first thing Jeremy Watson said to me on the phone was, "What took you so long?" In other words, we've had the picture in the university for over a century and a half, really. What took you so long? Well, I think I replied something like, "The mills of God grind slowly," and or perhaps the mills of art, or art history anyway. But the truth of the matter is that we got very good coverage. As you see here, I'm not only on page 3 of the Times, but I'm compared with a giant wild cat seen in Aberdeenshire. This is the other picture, which you'll see in the little exhibition hanging next to the Capriccio. And this is a straightforward view of the Grand Canal, and it's got a couple of churches here, San Simeone Piccolo and the Scalzi. This is pretty definitely a copy, because we know the original painting, and I'll show you in a minute. And according to Charles Beddington, who's a dealer and a big specialist on Canaletto, perhaps the biggest one in Britain, he thinks that this one could be by, or it probably is, by Canaletto's father, Bernardo Canal, who was a designer of stage scenery and probably trained his son originally as a painter, view painter, scenes of Venice, but also as in stage scenery, which has the same interest in perspective and complex spatial relationships of buildings and objects. Why is it by Bernardo Canal, perhaps? Well, it has certain characteristics that are very common with him. The red ground or priming of the painting, you can see when you go and look at the original painting, shows through in lots of places. This is very typical of Bernardo. But of course, I think some people will say, well, it's not definitely. A lot of copies were made of Canaletto, but that's our attribution. And I agree with Charles that it seems convincing. Well, what about their history within the university? Someone maybe is going to ask me, when did you first see this? Well, I only first saw them, I think, in the late 1990s, when former Principal Duncan Rice, who obviously had an eye for art, got lots of nice paintings from the university, far-flung corners of the university, into his house, Chancery Lodge. And he had these two in the hallway. He also had a very nice Augustus John and Wilson Steer and a few other things. I think the subsequent principal wasn't so keen on the traditional art and got rid of them. Well, not completely, as you see, we still have them. So, in the 1970s, I found out by researching into the records, they were both on display in the courtroom of Marshall College, before Duncan took them in the 1990s into Chancery Lodge. I was interviewed for the job in the courtroom of Marshall College, but I think I was more intent on this array of powerful-looking professors sitting opposite me. And I don't remember seeing the pictures, but I may have spotted them on the wall. But anyway, if so, they've forgotten that. So they've been around for quite a long time. And when I saw them, and I would say I'm perhaps not the only one. I'm sure that at least one of my colleagues felt that the Capriccio had a much better sense of execution, both of the we'll see this in more detail later, both of the architecture, the stones, the underlying brick, the detail of the figures, than the other one. when you see them as reproductions, they look very similar, and you might feel, well, nice, slightly bluer sky in the view of the Grand Canal, etc. But if you notice also, it has a rather flat treatment of the dome. Well, these pictures we have only more recently found out through the researches of the former head of special collections and museums here, Alan Knox, were mentioned in a copy of the Aberdeen Journal. That's one of the two predecessors of the Aberdeen Press and Journal. The other one obviously was the Press, of Wednesday 21st of June 1865. And as you see here, there's some references, if I can find them, to pair views on the Grand Canal, Venice, after Canaletto. That means the old way of calling Canaletto, Canaletti. So after Canaletto means that they already at that time, 1865, when this was published, they were left in 1863 in the will of Alexander Henson of Casky Ben Dice. They were already thought to be copied. But then you go a bit further down, and you see there's also a Roman Forum after Canaletto. We don't know where that one is now. It might turn up, hopefully. Things tend to disappear over centuries. And then just beneath Roman Forum, you have the ruins of a temple by B. Canaletto. So this is claiming that it's an original. There's one thing that's a bit odd about that, and that's that B is not the initial of Canaletto, Giovanni Antonio Canaletto. B sounds like his father Bernardo, or maybe his favourite pupil, Bernardo Bellotto, who was his nephew. So that, to begin with, raises certain issues, but of course in those days they often got these details wrong, unless it suggests that they actually thought it was by Bellotto, who, when he later travelled to Saxony and Poland, used to call himself Canaletto. However, we're absolutely convinced that the technique of it goes beyond even Bellotto at his best, but he's very good sometimes, Bernardo Bellotto. So there we've got a few references that are interesting. And then when you go further down the list, these were exhibited in Marshall College in 1865. You've got a lot of Herculaneum vases, so vases from the great excavation of Herculaneum in the middle of the 18th century. And this collection of vases is actually very important. A lot of scholars of antique art come and look at them in Aberdeen. They are ancient Greek vases of the 6th and 5th century BC, and some of them are very good. One of them is in the exhibition. So, where's Casky Ben? I'm afraid I haven't pursued my researches as far as to drive out to see if it's still there. But because, in fact, I thought it might be under the tarmac of Dice Airport or something. But I've been told that, in fact, I've just been told before this lecture by Mike Christie, former member of the law faculty here, that it is there, and it's a nice big manor house and belongs to some quite well-to-do people now. I don't know if anyone here has been there. Are you guests of it? No, you haven't been invited there for dinner. Well, this is the location. This is the old Robertson map of 1822, which shows it there. And this is the Ordnance Survey map showing some of the grounds. Alexander Henson was a great developer of his estates. And he was also something of a philanthropist. He was fairly liberal in politics. I think the interesting thing is we've got a little bit in the exhibition that suggests that he might have got part of his wealth through the slave trade, and certainly his father did. His father, like Alexander Henson, was a doctor by training.
John, Dr. Mike.
Oh dear. Sorry. Do I have to click this on? Oh, you're excellent. Save it. Thank you. Yes, he was a doctor, and in the 1790s, in the 1770s, he went out to Jamaica and practiced as a doctor. This is John Henderson, the father of Alexander, and eventually bought a sugar plantation there, which had a number of slaves, black and mixed race slaves. Returning a wealthy man to Aberdeen in 1792, when he bought the estate, mansion of Casty Ben that we just mentioned. He became himself, John the father, an improving landowner and benefactor to the community. He had a black servant with him to whom he gave an annuity. I think, yes, all the slaves who were brought back to Britain were liberated at that time, and later became completely free, but I'm not sufficiently an expert on this. Alexander Henderson himself was also, like his father, educated in Aberdeen at the grammar school, where he won several prizes for classics, then followed the arts course at Marshall College from 1794 to 97, and then moved to Edinburgh, where he graduated a medical doctor in 1803, writing a thesis on the effect of breathing on the muscles, which apparently was quite successful. But then, like a lot of Scottish doctors, one thinks of Arthur Conan Doyle going to the South Sea, Scottish men of talent, and I think of my own school doctor in Highgate in London, my college doctor at Magdalen in Oxford. They were all Scots. He became a licentiate of the Royal College of Physicians in London in 1808 and established a practice in Curzon Street, Mayfair, so it must have been quite a successful practice, or must have pulled in a bit of money from it. But the issue sometimes is whether he got money from his family inheritance and whether this was to do with slavery. Well, this is often discussed nowadays, and I think it's true in many cases, whether people just had shares in individual slaves or whether in this case they owned an estate. He seems to have probably visited Jamaica himself in 1805. And in the exhibition, this wasn't my contribution, but Neil Curtis has particularly pursued this. We have one of the ancient Greek drinking vessels, or kylix. It's rather inelegantly turned upside down in the exhibition, so that you can see the black slave at this Platonic symposium in ancient Greece. And it's suggested in our captions that perhaps Alexander Henderson thought of his own background or his family's background in slavery, but also the fact that he was a great connoisseur of wine. When he got to London, in 1824, he published a marvellous book on the history of ancient and modern wines, and apparently travelled widely in Italy, the vineyards of Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Madeira, and even South Africa. He said the South African wines were dreadful, except for those at the foot of Table Mountain. So he was obviously a man of great energy and versatility, and whether or not he depended on that money that his father had earned through his slave plantations in Jamaica, we don't fully know. He might have earned a lot as a doctor in London, in this very posh part of London, Mayfair, Curzon Street. Apparently, he used to come back every summer to Aberdeen and develop his estates, and he even went in for developing, contributing to the encouragement of railways in the northeast. He also was a liberal in politics and a local benefactor, leaving £1,500 to build Henderson's model lodging house in Virginia Street, Aberdeen, and also supported industrial schools in the city. He believed in the improvement of the working classes, perhaps was a bit sniffy about them, but felt that they should be encouraged to pursue an education along ideal Victorian lines. He also, in 1857, endowed a chair of medical logic and medical jurisprudence at Marshall College, believing that the many mistakes in medicine were often caused by doctors ignoring logical reasoning. The first holder of the, well, which we hope they don't do too often nowadays, the first holder of the chair was Dr. Francis Oxton. I presume he was an ancestor of Derek Oxton, who very kindly contributed to the purchase of the etching by Canaletto that we have on the exhibition, but more of that later. He had no children and left Castile then to his half-brother William. And on William's death in 1877, the estate was sold, but as we've heard earlier, the estate still exists. So that would be something worth exploring. Well, what about Canaletto? This is him in a very nice etching after a lost portrait by one of the two other great Venetian painters of the 18th century, Giambattista Piazzetta. It would be very nice to find the portrait, but the engraving looks pretty good. I like the intensity with which he stares off into the distance, seemingly looking up at some architecture, one imagines, and what appears to be a very pulsating brain. Pulsating brain. I like the intensity there that has been captured by Piazzetta and then by Visentini. This is the title plate of a series of views of the Grand Canal by Canaletto that Visentini engraved in 1735. At the bottom of it you'll see his name in Latin, Antonius Canale Origine Cibis Venetus. So it means he was a Venetian citizen. This was a rank below the aristocracy, but it meant you were actually from the city of Venice, and they prided themselves very much on that, rather than an outsider coming from the Veneto, the mainland. And you'll also notice his coat of arms at the bottom, which has this little inverted V. And look more about that later. It's called a chevron, like you find them on the pillars of Durham Cathedral, for instance. Chevron. That might be relevant to our picture. Well, what about his pictures? He's renowned for using a proto-camera, a camera obscura, but the question is, what exactly did he use it for? I think he used it to try and frame views and to work out complex multiple perspectives, rather than being dependent on it for drawing every detail of what he saw. In fact, the latest research on his drawings in the Royal Collection of Windsor, which have many of them, suggests that he used the individual buildings. He would draw freehand from the building itself in great detail, first in pencil and then reinforcing it in ink. So you've got a combination of elements there, but he was known to carry around his camera. A small man carrying quite a big box camera. Canaletto means small canal. Little canal perhaps because he was the son of Canal Senior, who we've heard of, Bernardo, but also I think he was generally reported to be small of stature. This is a rather beautiful picture, the Riva degli Schiavoni looking west in Sir John Soane's Museum in London. That's the jetty of the Slavs, Schiavoni as it's called, and you can see that it's a rather rich picture in terms of spatial alignments, and it also has a lot of interesting figures, some of which are still static, talking to each other, others betray great skill in suggesting movement, like the men pushing off the boat. He's not the first to do view paintings. Luca Calvaris, who was a mathematician, you see him holding his dividers here, and also a geographer, was a precursor. And this is Calvaris' view of the same jetty, the Riva degli Schiavoni, from about 20 years earlier in the Sanssouci Picture Gallery in Potsdam. There we compare them, and I think you'll sense that Canaletto himself is in fact very much richer in terms of tone, more complex in spatial arrangement, and better at figures, basically. He started off by being quite unorthodox, and he clearly was inventive. And an early picture now in the National Gallery in London. We're not sure who it was done for, the stonemason's yard, which is actually a view of the church of Santa Maria della Carità in the background. But it's called stonemason's yard because he's not interested just in a formal description of the beauties of Venetian architecture. He's interested in the back streets, the stonemason's yard, the life of the figures. This woman seems to be scolding a child here. And that's typical of Canaletto's almost sort of cartoonist skills sometimes with figures. You'll notice too he likes the washing hanging out of windows, which we've already seen in the Capriccio. He went on then both for visiting aristocrats, grand tourists who were referred to as milords or milordi in Italian, often from Britain, England and Scotland, but also from Germany, and Scandinavia. He did these views of big ceremonial events, including regattas like this one in the Royal Collection. This one was done for Joseph Smith. Now, Joseph Smith played a particularly central part in Canaletto's life and career. He was a merchant in Venice and later in 1744 became the British consul in Venice. He bought lots of Canaletto's pictures himself, but also got commissions for him from visiting English and Scottish tourists. Later, he sold the bulk of his own collection to King George III in 1762, which is why we have a massive collection of Canalettos in the Royal Collection. Going back beyond Carl, there were other artists. This whole idea of view painting goes back to northern artists, Flemish and Dutch artists, including Gaspar van Wippel, who was known in Italy as Van Vitelli. That's a view of Rome, where he worked more than in Venice, of the Piazza Navona, early 18th century, but he started earlier as well. Well, he's pretty good too. But again, Canaletto ups the ante, makes his treatment of figure and space more complex and more energetic, I would say. Canaletto probably got training, we don't know who he was first taught by, from his father. And therefore he would have looked at stage designs, because his father was a stage designer, such as those that were often engraved in books from the Bibbiena family, a dynasty of stage designers from Bologna and Parma. I think they did have a big impact on Bernardo Canal, but also on anyone wanting to paint architecture in perspective. So let's now go into a bit more detail about the picture we call a copy. We're definitely not of the quality of an actual Canaletto, so it is a copy. Whether it's by Bernardo or not is still open to question, I think, debate. Well, as you see, it is quite a nice picture, and that's the original, which is in the Royal Collection. So Bernardo died we now know, in 1744, and according to fairly limited but nonetheless interesting documentary information, he did in his later years help his son to do copies of his works to sell. So one mustn't forget that painting was a money-making activity as much as a calling. Although for Canaletto, one feels the calling was very much part of it. So there you have the two pictures juxtaposed. The one in Aberdeen is slightly more compressed, it's not so elongated. And there are some details that are different. There are quite a lot of slight details in the positions of the boats and the colours, actually. And even if you look at this statue up here, you see my little arrow there. He's removed the arm, the pointing arm that was there in the original. Now, what does that suggest to us? Well, maybe he couldn't be bothered. Alternatively, he may have used one of those prints from Visentini's collection of views of the Grand Canal that we've already seen the title plate of with the portrait of Canaletto. And here, this figure up here doesn't have a pointing arm, for instance. So this would seem to be a logical conclusion. Even the configuration of the clouds in the Aberdeen version seems closer to the Visentini engraving than to the original Canaletto painting, although certainly If it is by Bernardo Canal, our Aberdeen picture, he would have certainly had access to the Canaletto original because it was owned, as I said, by Joseph Smith, who was very close to his son, Canaletto. Right, well, let's move on now from that for the time being and look at the Capriccio, well, at least mention it again. We'll see better in detail in a minute, but in the middle of it, you've got a little chevron, i.e. this inverted V, which he does occasionally use as a signature Canaletto. So that in itself ought to be a surrogate signature, a reinforcement. He signs one or two of his pictures, but not all of them by any means, most of them not. So this is a kind of surrogate signature. What else is in the picture that's worth noting in terms of a rearrangement of elements? Well, as it said in the will of Alexander Henderson, it's the ruins of a temple on which a modern house has been built. There's also a pyramid at the left. This is the only known Egyptian pyramid in Italy, the Pyramid of Cestius in Rome. It was drawn and engraved quite a bit, but the most recent engraving by Piranesi probably postdates the date we think this picture is. It's done in 1743, so he may have seen an advanced copy of that. I wouldn't rule that out. So these artists in Venice tend to know each other, and Piranesi was back in Venice in 1743 to 47 from his period in Rome. What else is there here? Well, there's this bishop's tomb, which we'll look at in more detail later, which is on the right-hand side, and a view of a city, which seems to be possibly inspired by either Rome or Padua. Padua has a lot of ancient Roman remains in it, but and was quite near Venice. It was all part of the Venetian Republic, part of the Venetian mainland. And then you've got these interesting arches, and the treatment of the crumbling plaster, the red brickwork and terracotta brickwork underneath showing through, the way in which the lines, we'll see this more in details later, the lines are drawn, dividing the various slates from each other and stones. All of this is done with immaculate skill, actually, when you go and look at the original again or for the first time. However, in 1741, the War of the Austrian Succession broke out. And gradually this meant that less and less British and other tourists went to Venice. So eventually in 1746, through the good offices of Joseph Smith, Canaletto decided to move to England, to London. And while we strongly feel that the technique of this picture, the Capriccio, makes it one of Canaletto's very best, and that his technique declines a little afterwards, his English works are very variable in quality. One couldn't altogether rule out that Capriccio was done in England, where he spent the years 1746 till 1755, with the interruption of about 9 months in 1750 to 51 when he went back to Venice. But it would seem very likely that he did it when he was in Venice before he left. One view is that the Venetians were getting bored with these views of the Grand Canal. They knew it, they saw it every day when they went out for a walk, and that they preferred these imaginative sort of reconstructions. Another possibility, however, as I said earlier, is that some of the English and Scottish tourists liked the idea of reminiscing about the ruins they'd seen and the life they led when they were in Italy. I think one or two of the better pictures done in England are rather good. I like this one that belongs to Andrew Lloyd Webber, who paid about £8 million for it about 20 years ago, I think now, so it'd be worth a bit more. It's a very big one. It's a view of the old Horse Guards parade from St James. It's got some amusing little details in it, including this man here with a very large paunch who's talking to someone else, and this carpet that's being hung out of the window to beat, I suppose. That's a bit equivalent to the washing in the other pictures. Canaletto tends to reuse these devices, these motifs, to add a little bit of variety and energy to his scenes. And then there's this one, which is in the Dalit Picture Gallery. was commissioned in England by Thomas Hollis, who travelled a lot in Italy with his lifelong companion, who's that man there, and acquired an Italian servant, who's this one here, and a dog he called Malta for some reason. I don't know, maybe and he commissions this one, which is a nice view of this newly constructed bridge, which is called Old Reconstructed Bridge, Old Water Bridge over the Thames. I rather like it, actually. There's one detail in it that I think is quite interesting. You see this little red hat here? This is sticking up over the bank, and now that's a feature we actually have in the picture propping up over the rock face in the foreground. But while we're on Capricci, the third great Venetian painter after Canaletto and Piazzetta of the 18th century was Giambattista Tiepolo, perhaps in a sense the greatest. He also did a series of caprices, varie capricci inventati e incise dal celebre Giovanni Battista Tiepolo in the 1740s, the same date as our picture probably. But you can see here this is nothing to do with rearrangement of architectural elements, this is to do with figures. Tiepolo was a great fresco painter, a figure painter, and here we've got two figures who've been interpreted as a young antique soldier with a Medusa shield, and possibly an astrologer, or a wise man looking at a book, more likely an astrologer, I think. Various possible allegorical implications, but basically it's a free-flowing fantasy in terms of figures. Meaning remains somewhat elusive, but one which maybe connoisseurs and intellectuals could have toyed with at the time. So that's one kind of capriccio. Another, much darker psychologically, is Giovanni Battista Piranesi, who trained actually as a stage designer himself originally and as an architect, then went to Rome where he did a series of engravings for guidebooks to ancient and modern Rome, but then seems to have come back to Venice between 1743 and 47, where he was very friendly with Giambattista Tiepolo, and they clearly discussed the idea of fantasy invention, which in a way is the other side of the 18th century's passion for logic and reason. It's like Jane Austen's later Sense and Sensibility. Here, though, they're rather nightmarish. They seem to show tortures in prisons, so torture wheel, hanging chains, pulleys, staircases that lead nowhere but are totally illogical. They're almost nightmares, and they look forward to the Romantic period as much as anything else. There's another one, a drawbridge on the left. I think Edgar Allan Poe might have liked these. In one of them there's a sort of big pendulum that sort of seems to swing like in Poe's Piton pendulum, coming down to about to cut the prisoner who's chained at the bottom. Thomas de Quincey, the Confessions of an English Opium Eater, said that he'd heard that Piranesi did these when he was suffering from a fever. Certainly, though, visually speaking, the idea of a capriccio that has a rearrangement of motifs for whatever purpose, it's thought that Piranesi might have been making a commentary on the rather cruel conditions in Venetian prisons in the 18th century. It was still quite a repressive regime till Napoleon walked in there in the 1790s. But a 20th century artist, the Dutchman Escher, M.C. Escher, was equally fascinated by the formal play that we find in Piranesi, and you can note here in Escher's Relativity of 1953 how both this and the Piranesi drawbridge contain multiple viewpoints and also impossible stairs that don't seem to lead anywhere. But this is much beyond what Canaletto does. Let's get back to Canaletto's Capriccio now. And you'll see here I have a drawing in the Royal Collection that seems to me to have certain affinities with our picture. You've got a tomb, and you've also got these two sort of soldier-like figures standing between a rock face in the foreground, which is like what we've got in our picture at the bottom. I can move that out there. So you've also got obvious references to things like the Colosseum in Rome. So I think of this one as a sort of a free fantasy, a bit of invention, rather than him actually painting directly from any motif. He would have a whole set of drawings from himself and engravings from other people that he could reuse and adapt. There is another drawing in the Royal Collection from about the same date that actually has a coat of arms with the chevron device on it, like in our picture, but this one just has blank coat of arms. Well, I thought it might be interesting to remind us that it's a suitable destination for the Canaletto picture, that we also have a picture of a bishop's tomb, which is there in the Canaletto. Here. This is William Elphinstone's funerary monument that was originally built in the 1530s, but apparently destroyed by Covenanters, iconoclastic Covenanters in the late 1630s. It was actually inside King's Scottish Chapel. And then in the early 20th century, a man called Henry Wilson, who lived in England, was commissioned to do a replacement. It was going to be placed inside the church, but they found it was too big, so they placed it outside, and that's the one you find here, which, as far as the research would allow, has allegorical figures around it. It's quite like, in some respects anyway, the original. These bishops' tombs were quite common in the Middle Ages, and I think Canaletto is trying to do a kind of fusion of the classical and the Gothic in his picture, which was again an ongoing debate amongst architects in the 17th and 18th century, which is better. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Aberdeen Journal article refers to the Capriccio left to the University by Alexander Farquharson Henderson, that's his full name, as by B. Canaletto. Well, if B. Canaletto was Bernardo Bellotto certainly hasn't got quite the qualities. At his best, he's nearish to this, but not really good enough. And this is an example of a Bellotto Capriccio from the 1740s in the private collection. You can see the concept is similar. The sprigs of foliage growing out of the room, the bridge with its arches, etc. But the figures, for instance, are much tamer in concept. So that's me trying to dismiss Bellotto's possible authorship, but you never know. I think not, though. Both Charles Beddington and Francis Russell, who's the other big English expert on Canaletto, Oxford Canaletto. As indeed was always my suspicion, I would say, although I'm not a Canaletto specialist. Let's look at some details now. This one has the Pyramid of Cestius at the left. It also has a nice fountain at the front of the temple, the portico, the main portico, and a washerwoman there. It's got a figure up here that could be a lion, but a lion was a symbol of Venice. But it could be a terminal figure, the figure to mark a boundary that was quite common in ancient Roman Greece. So, if you will say, on the right you'll see the quality of the stonework, the separation of elements, the sheer skill in drawing and detail, and then the underlying terracotta brick that he has to show the fact that it's crumbling. You also again see these two nice figures. This head here is done with typical sort of dot and swirl technique. The dots are the eyes, and then a couple of the swirls for the highlights on the face, and then that little hat, as we've seen it before, in the picture of the old Walton Bridge, popping up above the rock face. Here's the more. You can just look at that. Yeah, they come up quite nicely. Even these two figures are rather beautifully done, aren't they? The woman with her stick is pounding the washing. Here are the lovers. There's the tomb. There's the chevron signature. And again here, when you go and look at the original again, you'll see, I think, these qualities emerging quite well. Beautiful little garlands on the decoration at the top of the architecture, but also massive range of detail and texture. This would be the washing hanging down, shaded at that point. Here it's sunlit. There's one of the figures in the foreground, close up. As you can see, it's quite a free and bold mastery of the brush. I thought I'd show you a few other Canaletto pictures, but my details here are not particularly brilliant, but and in fact, some of these might even be copies of Canaletto. This one isn't, this is an original, but done about nearly a decade earlier. And there you can see in the background these sort of marks on the faces of the oarsmen, the gondoliers, have a certain similarity with R1. Or these ones here, this is another Capriccio done later when he was in England, or back in Venice in fact, and it's not quite so good, but if you look at this boy here, for instance, the way the face is done, this very free way with these curved lines. Or these two, Piazza San Marco in the Musée Jacques Mandre in Paris, and a detail of St. Paul's, one he did when he was in London. Again, these rather funny faces, the swirl and the dot. And even in the background, right at the back, this detail I show you is right at the back there. He even went in for a full range of observation of these tiny figures. It reminds me rather of that child's film I saw when I was younger, Larry the Lamb. Anyone here remember that? Anyway, now we can resume looking at the actual Capriccio. I like these two figures here. This is almost a sort of comic opera villain with his cloak raised up near his face there. And he seems to be up to some no good discussion with a rather oriental looking figure here in the dark recesses of the archway. Again, if you compare that with the beautiful highlighting on the architecture at the front, you can see what a skillful painter Canaletto is in combining architecture with the human figure. There's a close-up of the woman with her child. You can see the actual texture of the brush there. Here. And here once again is the bishop's tomb. I rather like the way in which the landscape is realised there. It's sort of very free, but again rather controlled. It reminds, almost seems to anticipate a landscape like Corot in the mid-19th century, one of his Italian landscapes. And there once again, just another close-up of Archbishop, who's still in Henry Wilson's memorial. Oh, sorry. The pedestal on which the sarcophagus of the bishop is placed is difficult to pin down. There's still room, I should think, for a lot of research on the architecture in Canaletto's paintings. But whether it's based on reality or just part of his rearrangement is much more difficult to say, so the research might get nowhere. This pedestal here has a certain beveled edge to it there, you can see. It's not a simple rectangle. And you get things like that in antique architecture, although this is a complete opticon. This is the Tower of the Seven Winds in Athens. But similarly, it also has a carved relief at the top. So it is something antique. Where and when Canaletto saw that, or whether he's just invented parts of it, is difficult to say. I would say he probably invented quite a bit. And then finally, we have yet another washerwoman. We saw it before. We have the Pyramid of Cestius at the left. We have a very rather modern planimetric treatment of the townscape beyond, which could be based on Padua. In 1741-2, he travelled along the Brenta Canal up to Padua with his pupil, very gifted pupil, Bernardo Bellotto, and they did lots of drawings, particularly Canaletto himself. So I think those could be feeding into views like that, although it could also be reminiscences of Rome as well. And that's a little detail of the base of the column and the fragment of the column at the right bottom hand corner. how are we up for time? Nearly there. Let's look at one or two other capriccios by Canaletto. Some of these are rather different in terms of the colouring, although it's still quite a cool light, this one, like in the Aberdeen Capriccio. This is an island on the lagoon with a church and a column in the Wrightsman collection in New York, on loan to the Metropolitan Museum of London. And this is a more colourful one, which was a pendant to it. These two belong to the Barons Boston, who said they'd acquired them in Italy in the 18th century, but whether at what date we don't know. The younger Baron Boston only went there in 1770. Whether his father went there earlier, we don't know. If you compare the Wrightsman collection one with the Aberdeen one, you'll notice their sizes are very similar. So this fits in with Canaletto at that moment. And here's another one. This one is known through many copies. So again, you've got that issue, copies or originals. This one, some specialists think might be a copy, but the Poldi Pezzoli Museum in Milan thinks it's an original. Fair enough. There seems to be a slightly better version of it in a private collection in Italy. But you can see that it's quite similar, the sort of sweep of the arches, the underlying terracotta brickwork, and the bits of leaf sprouting out of the architectural ruin to our picture. And that's next to the St. Louis one. You get these arches through which you see distant vistas. That's part of Canaletto's style of capriccio. And in the St. Louis one, you've got again a washerwoman with her child, done with a certain animation, but I think these two are perhaps not quite as interesting as the Aberdeen. Now, we move on, we're nearing the end. The portico with the lantern etching, we've got this in the little display in the library. I thought that we included that in our article in Burlington in December 2017. And I thought it would be quite nice to buy one when I saw that it had come up on the market. A print dealer called Elizabeth Harvey Lee had quite a nice impression of it. Yes, it's quite nice, and it's even better when you go and look at the original. And I was able to raise money from Derek Ogston, from former principal Ian Diamond, and from the Scottish Fund for Acquisitions, with the help of Neil Curtis, to pay for this print, which now makes a very nice companion to the Capriccio. If we look at the print, it's part of the series Canaletto did in the early 1740s. You've got a bishop's tomb here, which gets moved over to the right. You've got a similar kind of low curved arch. And you've also got the chevron on a coat of arms, which you can't see properly in the photograph here, but is there as it's there. So all of these point to Canaletto. They point to him rearranging elements of his own art round about this period, early 1740s. That's the title plate to the views that he did, which include the portico with the lantern, which I think is the best one in the series. It's certainly the most well known. And as you can see from its title, those of you who are Italian, I won't bother to read it in Italian, a rough translation would be views, some representing actual sites, others invented. I think some of them are a mixture of the two, actually. I don't know if I put that one. I just thought that the actual buildings there, the modern buildings, have a certain affinity with the other buildings of the same 18th century in Aberdeen, this gable end here, sloping in the roof there. So I was just going to Starbucks one morning, and it was nice sunny day, so I took a little snap of it. But of course you've also got a triumphal arch, and then a temple, but also a view of the Venetian lagoon, so they don't always mix together. I think this one is an invented one, but it probably has, indeed definitely has elements from actual life. I think the acquisition of that etching was something of a minor trial, and I'm now going to end on a disaster, or relative disaster. recently we found, I didn't find, but someone else found in the university store this one, which, as you can see, is rather far gone. It looks as if someone's either slashed it or put their foot through it, as well as it being completely dark. But I'm told it's not a total disaster and not all is lost. It seems to be the other picture mentioned in the Aberdeen Journal article of the works exhibited in Marshall College in 1865 after Henderson had left them. But it's been, as we see from Byzantini's engraving again, it's been sort of compressed, and the building on the right has been much cut. But basically it's the same one. And you can see that better from the original, which is now in the Royal Collection. I'm told, however, that it should be possible to restore this picture quite well, if we can get any good funding for it, if anyone's feeling generous. I should think it would be quite nice to get that one done, albeit to talk about the way in which pictures tend to get damaged and lose their way. Perhaps we didn't look after it as well as Alexander Henderson would have wished, and as we would wish ideally. And that's it. Thank you very much.